The third bi-monthly monetary policy review of the RBI has come to an end, and on this blustery afternoon in Mumbai, we're going to talk you through some of the key highlights of this monetary policy review. The first, of course, is that the rates have remained unchanged. So the policy rate, the repo rate, has been maintained at 6.5%. And Sajid, the reason why that has happened is the RBI's concern on inflation. They've said that there is an upside bias to inflation trajectory going forward, but they've maintained their target at 5% for the financial year. Now, Sajid at the press conference today actually asked a question about when there will be room for further easing of monetary policy, and he's going to tell you about that.
The governor was very categorical that the space for monetary policy action only comes in when the services inflation is to come down, and he's also going to watch the full impact of monsoons coming through, and that's when some space will come in. He says that the services inflation has come down for 1 month, but he wants to wait and watch before he takes a final call on rate action actually.
Yeah, and one other point that he spoke about was that he was hopeful that this is the last monetary policy that will be determined by a governor, and that the next monetary policy will be decided by a monetary policy committee. So today he announced that Michael Patra, one of the executives at the RBI, would be part of that monetary policy committee, along with, from the RBI, the deputy governor and the governor who handle monetary policy. So
and the governor will have the casting vote in the monetary policy committee. So the ball still remains in the RBI's court as far as policy action is concerned.
Yeah, and so apart from that, he also briefly talked about GST. GST, of course, has been in the spotlight over the last couple of weeks, but he said and in several instances across the globe, once the implementation of GST has happened, there have been instances where inflation has gone up in those countries. Yeah. Questions were asked about that and whether or not he's factoring that into his monetary policy, outlook going forward. But what he said was that it's too early to talk about the potential impact that it would have on inflation without really knowing about the rate. So he said,
but the impact would be one time. That's what he said. It's going to be initially there will be some impact, and then it may ease off. But the concern of RBI is that this inflation impact should not get generalized to a normal inflation, and that's where the policy action will come in. And that's the reason why governor has been very cautious as far as policy rate action and his commentary on inflation, despite so much of risk to the upside of the inflation target of 5%. Alex, he also spoke about what he's going to do after he steps down from RBI as a governor. Yeah.
So finally, he's actually spoken about where he intends to go as far as after the RBI post is done. And so what he said is that he's going to go back to his teaching job at Chicago University, and he's going to be available for certain assignments that happen in India, but he's actually kept that very open-ended. Sajid, he's not really committed to anything.
No, he did indicate that in the past when he was working at Chicago or teaching at Chicago, he was doing some assignments for ISB. So he's still open to those teaching assignments in India, and that's what we're going to look out for, because then he's present in India for a long time, and he will be going to Chicago only in between for his sessions there.
Yeah. So, and finally, it started raining, as you can see. That's another point that Rajan is very keen on watching for, how the monsoons play out. Before we get drenched, we're going to run back inside. That's it for our coverage here at the RBI. Signing off with Sajid Mangat, this is Alex Matthew for BloombergQuint.